your regular fix of the best guests from the world of data and analytics. This is The Data Mix with Brian Bouden and George Beaton.
Good afternoon, mate. How are you?
I am good, Brian. How are you?
I'm very well. It is Tuesday, the 8th of April at 3 PM GMT, and we were here with another episode of The Data Mix. I've actually lost count, but I think we're at number 6. I think that's where we are. But yeah, it's exciting to be back, man. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm just catching some rays in front of my swimming pool here.
Yeah, I did notice that. Bit of a different vibe over this side. Like school holidays started 2 days ago, so and just to give you a bit of a look into my domestic life, behind me over this way, I've got a window, and the blind stopped working this morning, and the desk is in the way, and I had to work out a way to unpick the blind and throw it off. So it's like my window looks like a right old state at the moment. But
good job. I can't see that.
I'm in a good place.
Yeah. So I mean, for the BDI people, just in case I get accused of lying, this is a vert background. I'm actually in our London office right now, but it's a very boring whiteboard behind me. So,
can confirm, as I have seen the background recently in the before the taping took place. So yes, George is where he is supposed to be. Well done, mate. Commitment to the cause. And we talk about commitment to the cause, right? We have a great guest coming on today as well. We've got the caption up there. We've got Deepak Prasad coming on. But just before we do that, we have a few small things that we always need to cover. So let's get stuck in. Your support means a lot to us, guys. We appreciate you turning up. And we appreciate it even more when you drop us a wee review, because it helps push us up the rankings. And we've got a lot of shows coming up as we move towards some bigger events in the summer. So if you could drop us a review using the QR, Spotify and Apple are the really big ones for us. If you could drop a review on there, that would be wonderful. It makes a big difference. That was short and sweet, but I think it's to the point as well. So George, I think it's probably time for the data fix, right?
Let's do it.
Let's get you into it. All right. Jingle away, let's go. All right, so it's been a while since we've been on, actually, so a lot of things have been happening in the world, but mate, what are you choosing to focus on this week for the data fix?
Well, there was lots we could have done, actually. There's been a couple of IPOs in the world of technology recently, and a couple of failed IPOs as well that didn't go as they were expecting to go, so they pulled back. But all of the technology news at the moment leads to one source, and that is the tariffs that are going on within the USA. So for anybody that's been living under a rock for the last week or so, the USA has imposed blanket tariffs on pretty much the rest of the world. Now, we don't talk about politics here on the Data Mix or the Data Fix, but what we are interested in is the impact on technology. And one of them has been Tesla. So Tesla was down 10% on Friday, and we like to think of Tesla as a technology stock. I think NVIDIA, so I personally have NVIDIA stock, so I was upset to see that that's actually lost nearly 400 billion from its market cap over the last few days. So let's hope that turns around, because I haven't sold yet. You're not a loser until you sell, apparently. But I think one of the biggest, the company that stands to lose the most at the moment is Apple, and part of the reason for that is that Apple has huge supply chains across the world, but one of the biggest supply chains comes from China, and as we have been hearing, China is they're already being hit with, I think, 37% tariffs, and Donald Trump yesterday said that if China reciprocate, which they have done, then Donald Trump is going to add 50% to that. So I did hear stories of plane loads of iPhones coming quickly from both India and China over the last couple of days to try.
That sounds plausible. Yes.
But we'll see. So yeah, that's the data fix. Any comment on that, Brian? Have you been feeling any heat in the technology world because of tariffs?
So it's interesting because we talk about tariffs on products, right? And we talk about it on imports. But I've had a chat with a few people about how does this affect like services as well. And I'm assuming at the moment, if you're delivering services, you're okay. But I think there's been a bit of tension in the UK, especially from Keir Starmer, about how we are now entering uncharted territory in terms of global economy. Never before have we really gotten to the point where we're all charging each other tariffs for everything and effectively, prorating everything that is happening in the world in terms of product. Where is all that money going to come from? How are people going to, and businesses going to buy? It's fine to escalate everything by 30%, but where's all this extra capital going to come from? And I think, again, without getting political about it, I think the shakiness of the stock market and the FTSE and the NASDAQ and all of these are real serious signs that something is happening here. And we'll just have to see if the person at the centre of it all decides to soften their tone, but one would suggest that might not happen. So it's interesting. It's interesting, but we watch with bated breath and we see what happens. But it's the only thing we could really go with this week, isn't it? So
yeah, I think so. We'll see who squeals first, because I don't think anybody wants to put their prices up yet based on this. And I think Mr. Trump will come down quite hard on any US company putting their prices up. But somebody's going to have to. Somebody will, because out of desperation, they either put their prices up or die. So let's wait.
Okay, well, to be continued. And that was the data fix for this week. So thank you very much for that, mate. We appreciate it. It's sometimes things affect data, and the data that's behind these decisions, you could argue, is there data behind these decisions? And I think that's the interesting anti-angle of what we're talking about here as well. So we shall see. So that covered the data fix for this week. But on to the main event, mate. We've got a really good guest today, actually. We did the recording a couple of weeks ago. And it's Deepak Prasad, who's like a very, very experienced consultant and AI strategist that's been around a lot of different technologies. And George, I will leave you to tell the little story about what happened at the start of this recording, just to let everyone know before we get into it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which country was I dashing into, because I came flying into that. I missed the first 15 minutes of the session, but got in, still sweating, and said hi to Deepak, and we got going. It just goes to show that in this modern world of technology, you can run these. You can run these podcasts almost anywhere. You still have to be prepared. You still have to know what you're doing, but you can take your laptop anywhere.
Well, there we go. Well, look, without further ado, we'll get jumped into the recording. It'll be interesting because you'll just see my face for a little while until George decides to appear, but it'll keep you on edge to see when George is going to appear throughout the episode. Yeah. So, Deepak Prasad, everyone, we shall see you in about, I would say about 36 minutes, all right, to wrap this up. Speak to you very soon, guys. Cheers. Well, and obviously keep an eye out for the comments and stuff as well. We're watching the chat and we'll talk about any comments and stuff as they come in. All right, we shall speak soon. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Data Mix in Season 3. And as I mentioned before, we've got Deepak Prasad with us today. How are you, mate?
Hey, good. How are you? And you are from Edinburgh, right? From London?
In Edinburgh, yeah, right beside the airport. So if only it were physically in my budget to come and fly over and see you and do it in person, I'd be like set for it. But no, sadly not. But I think we're like in way different time zones. So I think you're 11 hours away from me, right? It's first thing in my day and last thing in your day. So yeah, all good.
It's almost 8:30. Thanks for doing this podcast with me.
Oh, no problem, man. No problem. We're delighted to have you here. And I say we. Normally, by we, I mean me and George. But George will be arriving imminently. He's just in transit right now. But we're going to get started, I think, mate. We're very excited to have you. And you've had a very, very decorated path through the world of data and AI. So why, like, for our listeners and viewers who don't know who you are, why don't you give us a bit of an intro and let us know like some of the tech stacks you've been working with throughout your career?
Good. Name Deepak Prasad. I've been consulting since 2008. Since being in 2008, I was when the moment I joined IT, the first project I took was in Unix and Oracle. So it's since you say that my path is across multiple technologies, that's because I started from black screen and now I am in a very colorful screen. So I started with Unix, Oracle, Informatica, Cognos, BO, MicroStrategy, and then Click, Tableau, Power BI, then Snowflake, GCP, and like ThoughtSpot, the list goes on. But if you ask me my total career, right, the span of around 15 years, if you ask me the two highlights that I always remember, first time I ran something with a bash script and it got executed in a black screen. And second thing is when I have been given a demo of in-memory analytics, which has current at that time in 2011, Power BI wasn't that famous. It was Click and Tableau. That's my second high. And the third high was when I saw Snowflake first in 2018-ish, what they have done. What's your career path like?
Well, look, it's a pretty cool set of highlights, and I just have to say that a black screen is a terminology that only people of a certain age will understand, right? But what we mean by that is command lines and terminals, being able to run things by actually typing and not just speaking to our AIs, which is the way that most people seem to work. That's a bit harsh. Not most people work that way, but it's becoming more important to be able to work that way, right? So I think that's the first thing. Kudos for the reference to the black screen. In-memory analytics, well, you don't need to talk to me about that because, we're on the same path there and we understand that. I don't have Hick's book behind me for nothing. So it's that's a path that a lot of people have followed. And obviously, the landing of the data warehouse and the online data warehouse in Snowflake and sources and targets nowadays are becoming much more prevalent in data pipelines as well. And a few episodes ago, we had Ben Rogojan, who is like pretty much at the very, very top of that data pipeline chain of making all that happen. So there's a lot to unpack there. But I think, for me, I've sort of become a specialist, and it's quite interesting for me that you started off as a kind of let's try all of these things, or maybe your career dictated that, and now I guess you probably settled on a few things rather than everything, which is where your career started. So, like, what are the things that you settled on now and that you like doing now?
That's what the consulting is, right? You can't say no often.
Yeah.
So they would ask you, can you do a prototype in this technology? And they come to you knowing that it's a new technology. So that's why they're asking for a prototype to see the feasibility, how it's going to work end to end. And at that time, you can't say, no, I don't have prior experience. No, it's new for me. It's new. That's why they're coming to you. You have to do it, right? So I think once or twice, if you got through that initial Cold War with the new techs, I think then you will understand that maximum what's going to be there inside. You will understand the total blueprint of IT and the infrastructure, the storage and compute and whatnot. You understand that this is what's going to be inside, maybe in a different order or in a different stack, but let's go and see whatever it is. So I think that mindset would come after a while.
I think mindset is really important to talk about, right? Especially from a consultancy perspective, because this is controversial, but I think tech doesn't matter. And I don't mean that tech is not important, but I mean when you become a consultant, your brain has to work differently from when you're an employee. Because when you're an employee, you have a set amount of things that you need to know about. But when you're a consultant, you need to know about like boatloads of stuff that you've never used before. And just to give you the example on that on a practical basis, you know, when we set up the podcast, I knew nothing about YouTube. I knew nothing about like WavePad. I knew nothing about how you publish a Buzzsprout and how you publish a podcast. And when I started my newsletter, I had no idea about Beehive, and I had no idea about ads, and I had no idea how to plug all these things together. But as a consultant, at some point it clicks, and you just, that's not a pun, by the way, it just starts to make sense, the way that you think, and the way that you start to connect the dots. So like how did you, like, at what point did that happen for you, where you stopped treating things as a piece of software or a tool to work with, and just think, this is another cog that I have to have in my wheel to make things happen? When did that happen for you?
I think the moment I understood that we can solve everything is because I understood what is the core ingredient. For example, let's say we are recording this, right? We are recording this because you can hear me, I can see you, and everyone is going to see every one of us. So, if you go crux it down and come to the last point, what we really have is light, sound, and internet, which is network, right? So that's all that whole podcast is. But if you apply the same thing to computer software, there are 3 layers: application layer, system layer, which is OS layer, and network. So if you take any technology, any tech stack, these 3 components, so if you know how they interact with each other, you can go till the BIOS level, you can go till the OS level, and if you go till the network level, I think the one area which I haven't explored much is network layer, but application layer and system layer, I think pretty much confident.
Yeah, and look, I think that in the spirit of becoming a consultant, it's a decision that you have to make, whether you're going to niche down, and that's either on, you know, you could say you're just niching down on one of those layers, you could say that you're niching down on a specific software or a specific tech, or you could say that you're niching down on like working out software that's required for an industry. So there's lots of ways that you can do that, and I think that a lot of people like don't know like how to make that decision, and I think that's an important thing. And I think one of the things that's interesting for you is that the decision was made for you by like working through the tech stacks until you find things that you like and find things that you want to spend more time on. Is that kind of how it happened, or were you kind of like, as a consultant, sort of like, I have to take this work? And
I will tell you why I. So C for consultant, C for challenge, right? So that's how I see it, right? And then the first 6 years of being in consulting, what happened to me was, so you got a neck of it, you understood, you spin up a VM, install a software, test your workflow, it's done, and then you scale it up you do it for 1,000 rows, then you will scale it up for 1,000,000 rows, then you will see whether it goes for 1,000,000,000 rows, and do the feasibility study, and it all goes on. So what I realized after 6 years is, when you are catching the wave is very important, right? So if I am talking about Cognos and MicroStrategy in 2025, I can be a SME in it. I can be the best person in that. What are all the amount of opportunities that is available to me, and how valuable I am to the company, and what am I doing to the company? Like, there used to be a fantastic piece of software called Hyperion, which is used for planning. I'm not sure whether you heard it.
I know it. I used to work with IFS, so I know Hyperion quite well. Yeah.
So the reason why I remember few of the technologies like Hyperion, Ab initio, is because when I used to work in Cognos and MicroStrategy, there used to be a set of consultants who was sitting with me. They would be like flying from somewhere, from US, UK, and even from India, northern part of it. And then they say they are specialized consultants and they do only Hyperion and Ab initio and things like that. I think that gave me a high. I think if you are in the edge, if you are catching things a bit early than others, then you are good. You are good to go. You can ride the wave. I think you will pick it up once, but without the 6 years, I wouldn't have learned it. So 2008 to 2014 was all about how can I, so am I enjoying the challenges? That's the first question I answered myself. Yes, I do. Then how can I be making sure whenever I take a new challenge that gives me a free ride for the future, right? So I think someone when I was like 6 to 8 years, they gave me one important tip. I think that's the tip that I give it to everyone. Take one tech stack, or take one word. Let's say data, for example, and let you ask. Now we have chat GPTs, many GPTs. You can ask, give me top 100 terminologies in data, and if it gives you the 100 terminologies in data, how much you know, and that would exactly tell you where you stand and how much you don't know. These are all the areas that should give you enough curiosity to conquer, right? I think that tip in 2014-15 helped me really a lot. So whenever I start, I always start with a blueprint. Okay, this is the blueprint I'm starting with, and I don't get deviated because I have a blueprint. I have done enough work for the blueprint, and until I cover it, I think I don't go around. Even nowadays, if I take up a Udemy course or LinkedIn, I finish it and then I go to the next one. So I respect my own blueprint. I might have missed here and there, but not completely, right? I think these are all the learnings that you take away: catching the wave, making sure you cover the blueprint and move on.
I like that. I like that, catching the wave. I think it's very important in tech. And, you know, one of the most important things in tech is that George has arrived in the background. So hopefully he's ready. I'm going to like switch him on, whether he's ready for it or not. And we'll, there he is. Hello, George.
Good morning, or Deepak, good afternoon to you, or is it even good evening?
Good evening, almost. And thanks, George. I know you caught 2 trains and walked a bit to reach the office and finally made to the podcast. And we had some hiccups too, and I think everything helped together.
The only thing that George did not do, Deepak, was catch a wave, which is what we were just talking about when you arrived. So Deepak was just telling us how important to catch a technology wave. So that's the discussion that we're in the middle of right now, mate. So yeah, I mean, so I guess that's a big thing for you, is like finding something, a line in the sand, following it through and picking that as your stack, right? That's something that served you well throughout your career.
Yeah. So if you take the wave, right? So 2000 till 2008, it is all operational reporting, SAP BO, templates, ad hoc report, no ad hoc. It is all bespoke reporting. And then came the in-memory analytics that gave way to ad hoc reporting, and then in-memory analytics happened. And then now the same thing that happened to BI layer is happening to the data layer, where cloud came to the evolution and said that you can scale, and you can scale to the level you wanted, because the main thing that Snowflake did very well, although Apache Iceberg is the reference point for them, the moment they decouple the storage and compute, one can scale to the level that others doesn't have to scale. So compute can scale to any level, and see what happened at that point in time. I think that wave that you catch is very important. Let's say that I would have taken some other technology other than in-memory analytics. I think I wouldn't have caught the wave, and I wouldn't have gone through all the technologies that came on the way. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say catching that wave is critical.
Yeah, so we've just been talking about Deepak's career path, and we started by saying, like, he's probably dealt with, if you think about like the 100 core techs that have happened over the last sort of 10 years, right, from a data stack perspective, like Deepak's pretty sure he's got most of it covered. Like, and I say most of it, like 60 to 80%. So, yeah. And we also talked a little bit about black screen programming and command lines and stuff. So let's hear your perspective, George. How much have you been through with that level of stuff? Have you had any of the command lines or the bashes or the Visual Basics to deal with earlier in your career?
I think you would be starting from mainframe.
Ooh, that cuts deep. Ooh.
Oh, you're in mute, George?
We can't hear you. We still cannot hear you. We could hear you a minute ago, but this is too cool. We're just gonna turn this episode into watching George now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Perfect.
Oh. Okay, so I work in IT, but I don't know how to set up the audio on my computer. So I was able to hear you perfectly. Going right back to the start, am I ashamed to say it? I don't think I am, but my first programming was with Microsoft. My first database programming was with Microsoft Access. So that's, and I was able to connect that to a website, and that's where I got the excitement of dynamic web pages, really. So to make a web page dynamic back in the day, and we're going back 20 years, you needed a database at the back end. Now, I have a twin brother. My twin brother started with flat files, so literally text files, and using text files and append and update of text files to do this. I remember talking to him about it, and it sounded exciting but difficult. And I've seen the entire wave. I got properly excited when ClickView 8 came along. I got involved with that. That then saw me going further and further upstream to no, downstream. I always mix up. Down to the actual database level. Started playing around with MySQL back in the day. So that was MySQL is still around, but I think it's now owned by Oracle. MariaDB is the equivalent, and then that got me into sort of more and more of the mainstream enterprise things like Oracle and Microsoft SQL. And here I am now. I don't really get my hands dirty anymore. I just talk about it.
And probably, Deepak, it's just important that we always bring on people that know more than us, and I mean that with the greatest of respect, because we are not as technical as we used to be, and also our audience loves hearing about things that we don't know about. They revel in the fact that we don't know what we're talking about at times. So, but I had a question for you, in terms of interesting challenges nowadays, and we talk about how you get deeper into that stack and the more technical that it becomes, right? But we're kind of at a crossover moment right now, I think, with AI, in that having detailed knowledge about the depth of a stack is, to a certain extent, slightly less important than it was a few years ago, because if you could, and we talked about this at the start of the show, right? If you can get DeepSeek running, or you can run deep research, and here's another thing that just happened, literally in the last few days, deep research was made available to paid users on ChatGPT. That means that you can just say, I want to know, be a command line expert. I want you to write this script that fires up a database with these 6 tables, has these 7 relationships, and data engineering is changing as we know it. So how do you feel about that, having been a black screen OG, if you like? How do you feel about that?
See, I think it's an enabler. That's how I think. So the reason why I felt it's an enabler is, let's take something like 2016-17, right? At that time, I wrote a metadata-driven framework. What it does is, we have set of tables, and today we have 50 tables. We have to generate 50 QVDs. Tomorrow we need 100. If you have 100 tables, I can generate 100 QVDs or table data extract or CSVs, right? So if you see the repetitive patterns in this, there are a lot of repetitive work. You have to write 100 extractors today. Tomorrow you have to write 100 more, and then it goes on. How about we have only one extractor, but it is driven by a config file, and it does iterative actions and create the outputs, right? And you can have variety of parameters to control it, whether you want all the columns, whether you want to check for duplicates, whether you want to do alias some columns. You can do all that with the configuration file. And to do that, I think it took 2.5 to 3 months end to end. Okay. Now, if I take any GPTs, any OpenAI tools, and type an exact requirement, I think I will get the query in maybe 20 seconds. And then I have to change maybe it would give me a rigid query. I have to variabilize it, parameterize it, put it as a function, pack it up, and change to coding standards of my company and principles that my developers can understand, add comments, maybe 1 day, 3 days to test and deploy. I think I received accolades and appreciations and almost an award as well. I think now if I do it today, I think the first thing people would ask is it done by you in one day or something else, right?
I get it. I've got one more follow up, and then I'll let George jump in. But I think the base of a data engineer or a data consultant nowadays is very different from the starting point that we had 10 or 20 years ago. And I don't want to bring up the past too much, right? But probably all of us on this call cut our teeth like in front of a terminal, like working out command line stuff. To a certain extent, we didn't even really have the internet to help us through some of that journey, at least, or the amount of documentation that was freely available just wasn't out there. And nowadays, it does make me maybe not reminisce, but it does make me wonder about whether the same mold of data consultant will grow in that way, because if you've got the choice of it's going to take you 6 months to do your dissertation by doing it by hand, or you can pay $200 a month to get deep research to give you 50% of it before you even start. How many people ethically are going to pick the right thing? And I know there's lots of things for plagiarism and that kind of thing, but I think it's a super interesting dilemma because, like you say, we're almost in the land of infinite compute now. So asking a very, very complex question like, can you write your dissertation for me, is something that is possible, to be perfectly honest. So, how do you feel about that? Do you see any of that, the shape of data engineering changing with the role of AI nowadays?
See, I think, George, very, very about to say something.
No, I'm listening, but I'm very interested in this topic.
Okay, so let's talk the journey of data engineering, right? So why data engineering came to the rescue? Okay, let's start with database. It was all referential integrity problem, and then they solved it with primary key and foreign key, and they wanted some history. They switched on changes, and there are some history table, and they have a current table. They solved everything, and then they understood that they still need to take the historical snapshots of the data, and they want to do SCD type 2 and do the current record marking and whatnot, right? And then what happened was, this guy, Informatica, Ab initio, and everyone, when one person is working on a workflow, the other person was sitting idle. So same persons together couldn't do the code development, and they couldn't CI/CD their pipeline. But there were some advantages in the Informatica pipeline. It could parallelize your data. You can do the component parallelism. You can do many parallelisms that you can achieve. But what it didn't give the high is we couldn't ship the software engineering principles to data warehouse. I think that's where analytical engineering came into the rescue. And people said that, you write your own SQL. When you want to build a pipeline, step 1 will be done by Deepak, step 2 will be done by Brian, step 3 would be done by George. And whenever they make some changes in their own SQL, if you wanted to affect the whole pipeline, it would affect. If you wanted to affect only certain branches, certain merges, that would do. I think that's what DBT did it very in a hassle-free manner. I think DBT, that's what they are growing very fast. And then what happened is the cloud equation was just before DBT, and then cloud engineering came in, where infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service came in, and then they have to spin something which says bringing software engineering to the data, and we have SQLs, and then we wanted to spin up serverless things just so whenever I need it. So then we became an amalgamation where data warehouse, data engineering, and analytics engineering, boom, it's all born together. And then you can write your Python. There were notebooks earlier, Azure notebooks, Databricks notebooks. I think Databricks can win a big accolade there, saying that they brought the notebook to the production grade. Notebook was there. I mean, I think it's called suddenly I forgot the notebook name, where the orange color notebook, if you know what I'm saying, but I forgot the company name. Jupyter. Sorry. Jupyter notebooks.
Yes.
Yeah. So Jupyter notebooks, and then people used to write R, Python, and then they used to scale it, but they couldn't achieve the production grade pipeline. So what happens is the amalgamation of data engineering, analytical engineering, and data warehouse together is where we live. And anything can happen in this. If you hire a good software engineer and ask him to build a proper CI/CD pipeline and use a SQL guys to do the SQL work, and DBT did certain things very well. For example, the macros, where if you have a fantastic SQL developer and if he can write one SQL that can help you lot of T-flops reduced, lot of transaction seconds reduced. So let him write all the macros. So for date conversion, time conversion, date time, days calculation, seconds calculation, he will do all the macros. Let other people just call the function in their pipeline. And the CI/CD. So when I write a code and it runs for 3 seconds, and George writes it which goes for microseconds, 300 microseconds, and then there would be a change in the function library, but people would be still calling the same function. And look at if I can. I recently heard someone who's working for a sports company that gave me so high. The whole pipeline they developed in Python, and they ran it for 90 minutes. It used to track where the football players stand, how the ball gets passed from X and Y of one location and X and Y of another location, and how many passes were there, and when the distance was less, were they able to pick up? When the distance was more, they were able to pick up. So very complicated pipeline if you think it and visualize it, right? It used to run for 90 minutes, okay? So they took the same pipeline, rewrote the code for Rust, and they developed it. And can you imagine how much time it took to run?
Oh, what do you think, George?
90 minutes to
one second.
65 seconds.
65 seconds?
65 seconds. So I was blown away. And then I asked him whether you learned Rust for this one. No, he said that there is a library now called as Polar RS, which does the Python to Rust conversion in the compilation. So they don't need to learn a new technology, new tech stack. So the library, when you import the library Polars, and then they do the same I think it was 3.5 million data points. Where we were before and where we are now. See, just imagine the same time savings and put it and scale it across the universe. You talked about infinite compute, and we talked about Sam Altman asking $1 trillion to the government to run OpenAI. I think it will all get reduced.
Yeah. So your hypothesis then is that this sounds more like augmented intelligence. So it still needs a human to almost orchestrate. And was it a human that said, "Okay, rewrite this in Rust," and then an AI did the actual transcription into the new language? So what I'm hearing is that this is part human, part artificial intelligence, and that's where you're getting the optimization.
Yeah, so it's not doing the job, but it's a helper in the job, I think, is the thing, right? And that's the nub here. I think that it's dangerous ground to just hand over all of our development pipelines to AI. It's very dangerous ground, but I think it's pretty solid ground to hand over an architectural blueprint to say, can you implement the code for this architectural detailed blueprint, please? And this is back to what you were saying, Deepak, right? The blueprint is important, and it's important from a technical standpoint and a stack standpoint, and also, George, obviously from a consulting standpoint as well, right? That blueprint is extremely important to have as part of it. I'll give that one to George to lead in for the next one.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. And from what I've been seeing more and more is that AI in the tools of the right person will, excuse me, will absolutely accelerate their productivity and increase the quality of their outputs as well. But AI in the wrong hands, again, it's like giving a scientific calculator to somebody that doesn't know how to use a scientific calculator. So
what is sine theta and cos theta, right?
Personally, I'm not worried. I think I've got a job for a little while. But what do you think, Deepak? Do you think you're going to be out of a job soon, or not?
So where I think we can all contribute to AI is, I think what Brian told me gave me a good idea, right? So let's say you want to take a train and go home. So your destination is fixed and your source is fixed, right? So these two things I think AI can't give us. So we have to decide from where we are starting and where we are going. Where AI can help us is what's the fastest way to reach my destination. If you take the whole blueprint and ask AI what's the fastest way and how can I do it frictionless. So if it tells you to change 3 trains and 2 buses to reach it fast, you wouldn't do it. Same thing.
Yeah.
So let's take one use case. Let's say AI transcribing for a reason, right? So what AI transcribing does is whatever we are talking in this meeting, it cracks it out and sends an action item for all the 3, which is very good. So, and then the second thing that happens with the same AI is we have to tell the same transcribing tool that it's not one action item you need to send. You need to send action item to 3 different people. And Brian is not only called Brian, some people call him different. George is not just George, some people call him different. Deepak, either be called Deepak or Deepak Prasad, it's all Deepak. And if I say boss in this call, who is the boss in this call? So the education comes to it. And the next piece is transcribing is one piece. Sending an email is the next piece. So SMTP configuration comes to the rescue, and then how would you do it at scale? So you have to think of architecture. So the moment you involve AI, you have to see how AI works frictionless and seamless with other components and make it happen.
I think that's a really good point, actually, in terms of thinking of the architecture of AI, because often we talk about the superfluous nature of it and how we just put a prompt in and get an answer out, but really architecture is a massive consideration nowadays. And just we're sort of all, I think we're all rounded out on time because we've got other things to jump to in the next few minutes. So, Deepak, how would you sort of see that happening in the next 5 years? Where do you see the steps of AI, and what are the next big things that you see on that in terms of
So I think since we have 3 more minutes, I will try to keep it inside 3 minutes. Okay. So where we started from machine learning, and then we said deep learning. But if you crux it down again, like this meeting, light, sound, and internet, those are all the 3 ingredients. So supervised, unsupervised, self-supervised, reinforced learning, deep learning, which is neural networks, and then you have the GPT transformers, and the list goes on, right? These are all the basic things which are extrapolated for different use cases. That's it. So if you take all this, there are few problems we have solved. For example, generative AI, less input. I will tell you 2 lines about my idea. It gives me a whole story. So less input, more output. I describe a cat sitting on a lotus, it gives me an image. That's generative AI. I talk about it, it upscales the audio and send it to someone again. So generative AI is one piece of the problem. I think the causal AI is the next piece. So because generative AI solves all the problems of what, when, where, who, I think causal AI would be solving hows and whys and what ifs. So if I have a drug, I'm a healthcare company, and if I give that drug to 30 male diabetes and 45 male no diabetes, what happens? So when I have the synthetic data generated by Gen AI, and if I pipeline it to causal AI, and if I can simulate an environment where I can test my drug without the actual people, I think that's the future, right? I think causal AI and Gen AI together solves the problem. Yeah. But Gen AI has its own hallucination problem, right? So if I show Gen AI hundreds of videos where hummingbirds is flying, just flying, and I ask Gen AI, the ChatGPT, does hummingbirds fly? It says yes, it flies frontwards. But if I haven't shown any video that hummingbirds can fly backwards as well, but still it doesn't understand because it hasn't seen any video in which hummingbirds was flying backwards, right? So it's our responsibility to bring all the data and for the training totally unbiased with all the pairs and train the Gen AI so we can get the quality of data that we wanted without any bias. And if I just pump all the videos of Trump talking good things, according to ChatGPT, Trump is the best president of the world, right? So I have to bring both left and right and and then you would ask causal AI and ask if I make Trump the president of India, where would you see India in another 30 years, right? So those are all the questions that you can't ask now because the current models that we have doesn't have a what if capability. I think that's the capability that causal AI would bring in. So the future is generative AI and causal AI working together. That's what I think the future is.
I think that's actually fascinating, and causal AI is a wormhole that we could go down in a completely separate episode in terms of the how. But Deepak, I just want to round out here by saying thank you so much for giving us your thoughts and your journey, because I also think there's a lot of people out there who are still understanding what stack do I use, where do I go, how do I decide, how much should AI play a part of it. And I think what this conversation has done is crystallized a lot of those things for a lot of people that are listening on the call. So thank you so much for being there. George, closers to you.
Deepak, thank you. I'm sorry I missed the first part of this. I'm looking forward to listening back to it. Thank you very much for your take on AI and how that's impacting data. It's a subject that fascinates me, and I know it fascinates our listeners. So thank you very much for giving up your time today.
No worries at all. Thank you so much. And I think we should do one more. Whether in another 10 years, whether the future of AI that we all predicted is all happening or not.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. We'd love to have you back. Well, thank you very much for now, Deepak. We'll catch you in the wraparound episode. We'll see you shortly. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Absolutely seamless transition back, George. Absolutely seamless.
Yeah, that was a good, because how long ago did we record that? That was a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, like three or 4 weeks ago, I think now. We've just not quite got off the mark. But since I was sort of driving for a little bit longer than normal in that episode because you didn't turn up, do you have any comments?
Yeah, that was a fascinating conversation. I think just as I was arriving, had Deepak not, or was it you that just reminded us that Deepak had made that comment about riding every wave, riding every technology wave. And I think that's certainly when you're young, you kind of ride it until you find the one that suits you. Because goodness, everybody's talking about AI. There's so many waves underneath AI, though, right from the sort of level of data to prompt design, to just kind of good old-fashioned networking and data pipelines and the technology that makes data go around in the world. So yeah, I was loving that chat. It was a little bit techy, though, wasn't it?
I think that's fair to say, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. We need technical content as well, but I think when you talk about catching the wave or riding the wave, I think it means something a bit different from what it did 5 or 10 years ago. Before AI, it probably meant picking a programming language or a tool that you want to hang your hat on. And I think probably what it means now is that 50% of people that come up from like educational establishments are going to pick a path of AI, and they're not going to pick a path of software. Those who want to get technical, they're going to understand how to use the AI thing that they would have done manually to start with and become a master at that. So we're actually entering a phase of history that is really completely unprecedented, and I think the way that brains are going to shape in future generations, especially since we both have kids in those generations, is really quite interesting. I'm not sure if I'm scared or not. I wouldn't say I'm scared, but I'm a bit like, will they know more or less than me? What will be their range of knowledge, and how will they source that knowledge compared to the good old-fashioned sit down with a book and learn it? And I think that for me, that was the thing that came out of that conversation with Deepak is that's all changing. It's all changing, and we don't have an awful lot of control over it right now.
No, and it covered everything, did it? Because right at the start, he was talking about black screens. Now, I didn't embarrass myself and go even earlier and talk about green screens. Mm-hmm. I certainly, just an interesting little techie thing that I learned recently is that it's been in our lifetime that the blue LED was invented. And before that, you only did have a red screen or a green screen, and a green screen was obviously the more common for us. So yeah, black screens. That's Deepak was showing his young age, but yeah, we're definitely moving into uncharted territories. Am I scared? No, I think I'm going to embrace it. I think that at the bottom, it's all driven by data. Data is what makes the world go round. We know garbage in, garbage out, etc. And even at the sort of large language model level, it's mathematics. Sure, at some point we're going to get ABI, and that's when things kind of get into an even more unknown realm. But for now, I'm relatively sanguine with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think it was just a refreshing episode to hear someone actually go through it, and I don't mean AI, but to actually just go through. I've worked through 60% of this stuff that's all been around. You don't get many of people doing that nowadays. It's focused on a couple of things, so to be able to sort of have the grasp and get over all of that is pretty awesome. I would say, pretty awesome. Yeah. All right. Nice. Yeah. Nice. A different kind of episode for us, but I'm here for it. So
yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Let's just we've got a few final things to cover. So obviously, just a quick shout out for us. Just give it, we mentioned that again, but just give us a review if you can. That would be really awesome. In terms of our next episodes, we've just recorded the one actually before this call. We've recorded another episode, but what I quickly wanted to do was just see, and you can maybe just fill for me just for a quick second, George, while I just see if I can get the thing that I'm looking for here. I'm pretty sure that I can.
Sure, yeah. So you're going to try and type up in the next 30 seconds?
Yeah, well, yeah. This is one thing that AI has not been able to work out how to do yet is get my video to come up. So
we have got, it must be getting for 4 or 5 episodes in the pipeline now. That we've got ready to come out, and some of them are absolutely fascinating. And even when we look at our back catalogue, we should at some time do a roundup of say the last 12 episodes, because there's been some really interesting stuff that we've done over the months.
Yeah, I think that would be a super cool thing to do. Actually, I'm just in holding pattern, but I think I've got what I need now. So let's just bring this up. So I just wanted to bring up a little bit of our history of what we've done this season so far. What I mentioned earlier on, we've had Roseanne, Brendan, Ben, Mitchell, Curtis, so quite an array. And obviously we've just added, and we'll see him later on in this episode as well, but a couple of exciting ones that we've got coming up soon. Andy Kriebel is going to be with us very soon as well, the #1 global content creator for Tableau. Officially, I think the #3 guy on the planet in terms of LinkedIn, in terms of data viz. So very exciting to have Andy coming on as well. Yeah, that was a good one. We've just had Deepak as well, which has been a very enlightening episode. We've got Taylor Desson coming up too. George, he was awesome, like the head of VP of Community at Torque, and just understanding how community-based recruitment is like a huge thing going forward as well. And Taylor was awesome fun, so we're really looking forward to seeing him.
So much energy in that episode.
Yeah, it's looking great. And just looking a bit further down our episode list as well, we just recorded, I won't tell you which one, but we just recorded one of these today, another one off this list today. And, we've got some more people from the world of recruitment and alternative BI tools and women who click and, unstructured data. So there is a lot of very cool stuff coming on the Data Mix, which we are excited to have you be a part of. So.
Great teaser, Brian.
Yeah, nice. It's one episode behind, but we're pretty close there. We're pretty close. So, thanks for finding the time and coming out of the pool and making yourself respectable, George. We do appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, nice. And I think that's it for today. It's been wonderful to have your attention, and we're really getting back to regular editions again. So we are very much looking forward to that.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you very much, mate. It's been awesome. And we will see you for the next one. All right?
Likewise. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks everybody for listening.
All right. Catch you later, guys. Cheers.